On this episode, I speak with Nina, who is from Bulgaria.
Related to Japan, there are so many things that we cannot control.
She walks us through her 3 birth stories, each at different clinics.
Every clinic and every hospital, they have so many rules, right?
And talks about the differences between them.
They were supportive of breastfeeding and supportive of more natural ways to give birth.
Hello and welcome to Birth Stories of Japan. Hi Nina, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm good and I'm really excited to talk to you.
Awesome.
Such an important topic.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad we could finally get together.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'd love for you to just give a bit of an introduction of yourself and also your family.
Okay, yeah. I'm Nina. I'm Bulgarian and we are in Kansai area. My husband and my 3 boys and our cat. So my oldest is 11, my middle son is 6, and the youngest is 3.5. So my birth stories are not so recent, but hopefully still helpful in some ways.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I think is really important and really interesting actually about your story is that we're going to have all 3 of your birth stories on this episode. So we're going to be able to compare each facility and all the different experiences that you had between them. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Also, when we got together, you sent me through your birth story notes and you've actually documented them a bit yourself. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So it took me years, but I've shared my stories because when I was preparing for my births, I really went and read as many stories as I could, and really helped me to feel that to know that birth is so different and everyone's story is so different, but they're all so beautiful. Even like the heartbreaking stories, there's so much beauty and love. So I really wanted to share my stories, and I've also created some other resources like some affirmations, and I'm also finished now a pregnancy journal that I wish I had to through my pregnancies. So if anyone would like to check that, you can go to my website and everything's there.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to put that link down in the description for anyone that wants to join you on your blog and with your resources. That's amazing.
Thank you, Tiana. I really appreciate that.
So, in saying that, do we want to start with your oldest? So what was your journey to pregnancy like for him?
Okay, so I'll begin with that. Our pregnancies were all surprises. So 12 years ago, I got pregnant with our first, and it was a very turbulent time. There was a lot happening in our lives, but I kind of didn't give myself the credit that there was so much going on. So I just went with the flow. I found out I was pregnant. Me and my husband were living in 2 different countries. And I knew that I was pregnant around 6 weeks. That was very exciting, but also unplanned. So there was a lot going on.
Sure.
And I moved to Japan halfway through, and we had to find a hospital, decide on a place.
Yeah.
I also had morning sickness in the afternoons though. So for quite a few weeks in the mornings I was working full time, but around 3-4 o'clock I just couldn't anymore, and I had to go back home early, and
Sure.
it was quite tough for quite a few weeks. And my husband was not nearby to support me, so that was also hard.
Oh, gotcha.
But after that, it was quite uneventful. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, nice. So you mentioned that you moved to Japan and then you had to find your hospital. How did you go about finding that hospital? Where were you guys and what was the name of that hospital that you ultimately chose?
Right. So there was, I said, so many things going on. So I just asked my husband to help me see what's available because I had no idea, like how it works in Japan, like the coupon system, etc. I knew nothing, and I basically came, and then he had done some research, and basically there were two options. So we had an option of one bigger, still maternity clinic, not a
Sure.
hospital,
Okay.
but like bigger facility, and they offered English consultations, and it
Wow.
was still close enough.
Mm.
And we had another option that was really close to our place, like 10 minutes by walk, a smaller maternity clinic with basically one main doctor.
Mm.
And he was also okay to use English. So
Awesome.
finally, I chose that place, the smaller place, because I liked the feeling of feeling a bit like at home, and
Mm.
I like the idea of also seeing the same doctor every time, like building that
Awesome.
relationship.
Yeah.
But there was not, for example, there was no option for epidural.
Okay. Gotcha.
And for some time I was hesitant.
Mm.
But then once we've made the decision, I was like fine with that.
Mm. Awesome. Do you
Yeah.
remember the name of that clinic?
Yes, it's Hirano Maternity Clinic in Hyogo Prefecture.
Oh, okay. So you were in Hyogo at that time.
We're right. We've moved twice, but like we're still in the same area between Kobe and Osaka in the middle. And
Gotcha. So
yeah.
let's get into going into labor.
So my babies were all born after their due dates. And for the first one, we needed to wait quite some time. That was really stressful.
Mm.
I did all I could, but you can't control it all. So
Sure.
I was booked for an induction on Monday, exactly after 42 full weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
And the Friday before, of course, I wanted to do anything possible to avoid being induced. But
Mm.
Friday evening, I was finally being at peace with having an induction or just doing anything that just needs to be done right. So I was finding this peace, and next morning I woke up around 5 o'clock with cramp pains.
Mm.
I could feel the contractions coming, and after some time we knew that's probably it, and the birth had started. So we called the hospital and they told us to come in. And I took some time, but still, probably before 9, we made it. We walked. And of course, it was much longer than the regular 10 minutes,
Mm.
but it was all fine.
That's so nice that you were in walking distance.
Right, right. That was really nice and really helpful. And I
Yeah.
don't remember much of the walk, but it was not stressful. It was good. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
I've lost some of my water already, so they gave me a drip
Mm.
to avoid infections. My husband was there with me, and before giving birth, I thought I wouldn't want anyone else to be there with me. But actually, my in-laws, my husband's parents, came over, and my mother-in-law entered with me. And actually, she was giving me these great, massages and the pressure on my low back pain. And
Mm.
that was really, really helpful.
Awesome.
They kind of insisted that I have breakfast, and I didn't feel like eating, but I had it, and then I vomited later on.
Mm.
And around noon, contractions really
Mm.
peaked, And as far as I was able to, to choose positions, I was doing okay.
Awesome.
But then later on, they kept asking me, go on the bed, go on the bed. And once I lay down, the back pain was really, really strong. So the last few hours of labor were extremely hard because of the position I was in. And I think I had a back labor. Yeah, the monitors were all around. It was not comfortable. So the pushing phase was really long, like in my experience, the hardest and so long. And I was getting so exhausted and so frustrated with the back pain. So at some point, I had the main midwife there with me, and she was okay, but she was quite like, I think a bit harsh, I felt.
Okay.
So it was not a perfect match. Like I was trying to do some controlled breathing, and she was kind of making a little bit fun of me, which I didn't find supportive.
Yeah.
But it was probably, me and her not matching, or I don't know.
Sure.
I think I needed some more kind of gentle support and encouragement.
Yeah.
She was up to the point, kind of. So it just didn't work so well for me. Then once the doctor came to check on me, I was like, cut me! And at first he thought I meant C-section, because trying to explain to me there's no
Gotcha.
any any indications for that. But I was explaining that I want episiotomy, so he kind of agreed and he did it. And after that, my son came.
Wow.
And later on, I kind of regret that I've asked. But in the moment, that's the only hope
Yeah,
I was seeing.
Sure.
And once they placed him on my chest, of course, I like kind of came back to myself and started feeling all the hormones and all this beautiful feelings of finally having him there on me. But I kept feeling guilty for that 1 minute. I felt nothing. So on paper, my first birth was like this birth from the books, like 12-hour, no big problems, no complications, episiotomy, natural birth, a vaginal birth, right? But it actually left me with a trauma, and it took me years and a lot, to think about and reflect.
Yeah, wow. That's so interesting. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more about your postpartum recovery?
Right. So actually, it was quite good. Of course, kind of the shock after giving birth for the first time was really big. Um, but the physical recovery was quite good. I went to stay with my parents-in-law for a month after giving birth. So we are like 2 hours away from my husband, but we decided that would be good. For the first time, we didn't know much, and he was feeling more comfortable if I would stay with his mom. While if I would stay home, he wouldn't be here most of the time. And I was actually fine with that. And I think it really helped me because I had the space to be with my baby, but I also had support, and I had all the cooking and cleaning, taken care of.
Amazing.
And I think this 1 month was really good for me because physically I could recover, and I was a bit concerned because I have history of depressive episodes, so I was a bit concerned about postpartum depression, but gladly, thankfully, I was really calm and grounded and feeling all these happy, beautiful feelings, having a newborn. And yeah, breastfeeding was much harder than I expected. I really wanted to breastfeed, and I was hoping maybe up to 6 months I can try. But of course, the first days in the hospital with the milk coming. That was much harder physically than I expected. And I stayed 4 nights. Actually, I was supposed to stay 5 nights because it was first time to give birth, but I asked if possible because I was feeling fine. So I stayed for 4 nights and went home. And of course, I needed more support with breastfeeding after we went home. I think
Gotcha.
I also did another consultation or two after coming back home with the midwives, and we could figure that out. And once breastfeeding was established, it was really good and smooth
Awesome.
and mostly fine. And actually, the second time and the third time, it's amazing how your body knows and
Mm.
remembers the first experience. So breastfeeding was, of course, hard the first few
Mm-hmm.
days after giving birth. The second and the third time, but like as a whole, much more easier and smoother if I
Awesome.
compare with the first time. So yeah, our bodies are really amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I'm so glad to hear. I'm
Yeah,
expecting baby number two,
yeah,
so thank you. So
congratulations.
my fingers are crossed that it's a
Right.
similar
Yeah,
similar story for me.
yeah,
But in
yeah,
saying that, shall we get into
yeah.
your second baby now? So they have 5 years in between each other, is that right?
Right, almost 5 years. That's true. So,
Mm.
as I said, all my pregnancies were surprises, and I was at a point where I was feeling like maybe one will have one kid,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and I knew my husband wanted more. So, through the years, through the discussions, one conversation I remember, like he was telling me, okay, I really want more children, but if it's hard for you, I've come to this point that it's fine for me that we have one child. And I think that was really the turning point for me where I felt like really
Mm.
understood and supported and loved.
Nice.
And then it really then opened the doors and the possibilities of having more kids. I feel now like they came back.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then I got pregnant and um, I already had a child and it was busy. So like most of my pregnancy went in a second. Right.
Awesome.
And I had morning sickness and it was tough, but after that it was more or less okay. And I think around 30 weeks was when I really looked back on my first labor and my experiences
Mm.
and tried to analyze and see what happened and how things happen and
Mm.
what intentions I want to set. And around that time, I also found Alexia Leachman, who's based in the UK, and she has a great podcast. And I realized at that point that for my first pregnancy and birth, I really focused more on the uh, physical part of it, like how my body is changing and changes during pregnancy and then baby and child development, etc. But I didn't focus so much on the emotional and the mental preparation.
Mm.
So I had like 10 weeks and I really dig into myself, so to say, my experiences, like clearing all my fears or thinking about fears. And then related to Japan, there's so many things that we cannot control
Right.
here. So many challenges coming out from cultural perspective
Mm.
and being a foreigner here and not being so fluent in the language, so to say, or not even being seen.
Mm.
You're seen in a different way just because you look different.
Mm.
So there are many things I needed to work on myself.
Mm.
And
So did you take part in some kind of practices?
right, so I did what I could by
Mm.
myself, and also very important part of the preparation for the second time was involving my husband.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because for the first birth, like he was there, he was present, but we didn't really prepare so well about the birth itself, mostly
Mm.
about parenting, let's say.
Okay. Yeah.
And for before the second birth, I really felt that I need him there with me and I need him as my partner and I kind of needed him to do what he can because for men during pregnancy and birth, there is so many things out of their control, right?
Yeah.
So I think it already puts them in a very stressful situation.
Mm.
So we really took the time to prepare as a couple. I involved him in everything that was available through our clinic.
Mm.
And also at home, we talked and practiced
Awesome.
about, being together in different ways. He can support me.
Yeah, nice. And what was the name of your clinic this time round?
So, yeah, the second time we've moved, so we are further from my first
Mm.
clinic. And then I chose the closest
Mm.
option. So it's Santa Cruz Maternity
Mm.
Clinic,
Mm.
Takarazuka. And there are a few doctors, so every time I'll see a different doctor. But mostly, I think I saw altogether three doctors.
Mm. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so being mindful of your first pregnancy and knowing that you had things to work on for the second pregnancy and also second birth, how did that shape your second birth story?
Oh, it changed so much, like so much.
Mm.
So, first thing is about, I think it gets mentioned so many
Mm.
times. For example, the weight control or
Yes.
gaining weight and being monitored.
Yes.
So, what was the other thing I wanted to mention? Right, the due
Mm.
date and the induction, because I had the experience of like being given the chance to wait 2 full weeks
Mm.
before starting the induction. This time around, they told me, well, in Japan, you get induced right after 40 weeks or something like that.
Mm.
Okay, wait a little bit. I had this experience just 2 stops away.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I, yeah, really felt much more empowered.
Awesome.
The other thing was about positions during birth.
Mm.
I saw the big difference between being able to move and position my body any way I feel
Mm.
is good for me in the moment, rather than just lie on the bed.
Yeah. So do you think that these differences happened because of the different hospital that you were at, or was it because you felt more empowered, so you advocated more? Or was it both, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely both.
Mm.
Because every clinic and every hospital, they have so many rules,
Yeah.
right? And I completely understand, like, they need to be responsible. And I realize that they're trying to minimize the risk, right? They're really trying to
Mm.
take care of the mother and the baby, but there are so many rules that it leaves really not much space for the mom, for
Mm.
the family. And in the end, I think a lot of people experience uh, feeling powerless or feeling out of
Mm.
control. Usually you'd have this talk to a midwife around 30 something
Mm.
weeks about your birth and your birth wishes and expectations, so to say, birth plan,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
At the second hospital, I also had it and I explained what kind of experience I had and I talked to them openly about my wish to give birth in a different position than lying on a bed.
Mm.
And I was told like it is possible, but it also depends on the main midwife leading the birth. So
Oh.
from Japanese cultural perspective, I heard it as a no, right? So
Mm.
I prepared myself, and I worked on my fear that I needed to lie on a bed. And I actually prepared mentally
Mm.
that I'll probably, for the last part of the birth,
Mm.
would still need to be on a bed.
Right, okay. And then is that what
Yeah,
happened? So do you want to just summarize like
right.
how long your labor
Yeah,
was and what position you ended up being in?
right. So my labor was much shorter.
Mm.
It was a few days after the due date, and the day or two before I needed to have the talk about postponing
Mm.
induction.
Gotcha.
what I have prepared to fight for. Yeah, I went to the hospital before midnight, got checked in, and my second boy was born right after midnight. So quite
Wow.
short,
Yeah.
just a few hours, and everything progressed quite fast. But I was like on all fours and moving,
Mm.
and I had the monitor, but I still kind of I didn't care much about it,
Mm.
and I could still move. And the main thing was my husband was there, so he was
Awesome.
fully present, and he was doing what he could, and he was giving me massages and anything to support me.
Mm.
And it really, really helped a lot. It
Awesome.
makes such a big difference.
Mm.
And yeah, for the last part of birth, they told me to go on the bed. That was again the hardest part, but it was quite short, maybe about 30 minutes of pushing on the bed.
Mm.
And I tried to stay in this, as relaxed as possible in the state of,
Yeah.
um, yeah, being in my bubble, so to say. And he was born, and that was amazing. He was placed not on my chest but on my belly this time, and they
Mm.
kind of put a sheet that kind of I didn't
Mm.
realize because I wanted skin to skin
Mm.
contact, and I've mentioned that, but and they've agreed, but there was this sheet, so basically still separated
Mm.
in
Gotcha.
a way.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, they moved him to the little bed, to the little cot
Mm.
next to my bed, and my husband was there, so he could measure him together with the midwife, and then I had him back on my chest for the next 2 hours after birth.
Beautiful.
And yeah, because it was so quick and so empowering, it really
Mm.
felt amazing. And I felt, in a way, I mean, a lot of things didn't happen as I wanted or expected, the little things,
Mm.
but at the same time, I felt really reborn in a way.
Wow. That's so amazing to hear. I'm so, so happy for you. And then, so what was your postpartum recovery like this time?
Yeah, so no big major issues, but I felt it took a bit longer.
Mm. Did you have an episiotomy this time?
No, no, but I got a few stitches because I
Mm.
tore naturally, but that was actually much better than if they visit me. And
Mm.
if I compare that, it was much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I went into any depressive,
Mm.
state, but just finding my way to handle two kids,
Mm. Yeah.
the
Sure.
newborn with so many needs, and then my son. So there was a lot of crying everywhere, including me,
Yeah.
wanting
Aw.
to meet everyone's needs. And like I was
Yeah.
basically probably not so present for my husband because all my energy went into the kids, and
Mm.
there was a lot of drama.
Aw.
But yeah, like trying to give also some grace to myself. What
Mm.
I'm not good, I think moms are not so good.
Yeah.
We are always expecting to be doing everything for everyone, right?
Mm.
But being patient with yourself.
Yeah. And then, so how about your third baby? So 3 years after baby number two, is that right?
Right.
Mm.
So, I don't think me personally, I was never dreaming or imagining I'll have three kids. There's still some mornings I wake up and I feel, wow, is this my life? Yeah, so it was a complete surprise, and I knew I'm pregnant right before Christmas, so that was a Christmas present.
Cool.
So I was just coming out of a month or more of terrible morning sickness, and basically spending a few weeks on the on the couch, on the sofa.
Mm.
Then everything got shut
Mm.
down because of COVID.
Yeah.
And this time around, I was considering also giving birth at the midwife clinic
Yeah.
and I was also thinking of giving birth at home.
Mm.
But because of where we are, all the midwife clinics I could find were quite far, and I needed to get there by car, like 1 hour drive or 40 minutes drive, and I don't
Oh
drive.
gosh,
And
yeah.
then I found a clinic that, again, maternity clinic, again, a clinic that felt very homey with two main doctors, a father and a son, and they were supportive of breastfeeding and supportive of more natural ways to give birth,
What was the clinic called?
called Mom's Clinic, and it's in Kitakobe, North Kobe area. The staff and the doctors, they were really kind and supportive, and I'm so grateful because it was like an eventful pregnancy. We also had the talk with the midwife and kind of negotiated to give birth on my side rather than on my back.
Nice, awesome.
So again, they were trying to be supportive and did what they could, but they still had their policy.
Right. And then so let's get into your birth story then.
Okay, so again, my due date came came and passed, and 2 days I think after my due date. So I woke up around 11 o'clock in the night, went to the toilet a few times, and then I started getting stronger contractions, and everyone was asleep at home, so I decided to just wait a little bit and see. So I actually wanted to stay home as long as possible, and I was even envisioning like giving birth on the way to the hospital or even on the on the parking lot because
Yeah.
I really wanted my husband to be there, and because of COVID, I was told like if there was no one else giving birth, when I was giving birth, maybe my husband could be there with me and allowed in. But if we are sharing the birthing theater with another with
Gotcha.
another lady, then the husband wouldn't be allowed.
Right.
So again, I did a lot of, mental, emotional preparation, and I was basically fine with whatever happens. But I was truly hoping that he can be there for
Yeah.
me. So we got to the clinic. I got checked in around midnight, probably. And my husband was not allowed because there was somebody else behind the curtain giving birth as
Right.
well. So I was having contractions by myself for about 4 hours, 3, 4 hours. And then when it was time for the pushing, they had to move me from one room to another, and that was really hard.
Yeah.
But I was transferred to the birthing room, and then my husband was called in, and I tried to lie on the bed on the side as we've talked with the midwives, but I really couldn't do it. And I ended up on a very tight bed, being on my all fours, and like they asked me to be on the side, but I just couldn't do it, so I kind of ignored. It took quite a lot of pushes before the head came out, and that was again the hardest part for me because till that time I could really stay calm and concentrated and trying to relax my body and using all the techniques I've been, practicing. But that last part, I was totally, out of control and
Yeah,
screaming.
sure.
Once he was born, I could turn and have him on my chest,
Awesome.
and that was really good that they allowed me to have him. And actually, compared to the first two birthing clinics, this time I could have him for a really long time before they took him away to check him. So I really appreciated that they gave us this time for me and
Nice.
him to bond and didn't, pressure us
Yeah,
and didn't
awesome.
took him away. And that was the only like about 2 hours when my husband was also allowed in together with us because then he was sent
Yeah.
home and then because again of COVID, no one could visit us. So we went back home after 40s, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
awesome. I'm glad that you guys got that time together after the birth, at least.
Yeah.
And then, so how was your postpartum recovery this time round?
Again, physically, it was okay, but like I feel like also with the age, it took quite longer for me to, find the energy.
Mm,
And I was, of course, there for my baby, but I felt like everything took more effort.
sure, sure. And then, how was breastfeeding this time round?
Right, it was quite smooth. I felt like, of course, when the milk comes, the engorgement, that's a bit painful, and the midwives were also helpful and coming to give me massage, etc.
Mm,
But establishing it at home was much better than compared to the first time,
mm,
let's say. Yeah, I think it's really important that we really don't push ourselves too much and just being
mm.
gentle. And of course, all our energy and love goes to this little tiny baby.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we can look at ourselves and say, it's okay, just go your pace, no need to push
Mm,
yourself. Yeah, just take the time to appreciate your own body and what it has
mm.
been through, and also your soul and all the things you've been trying to do and you've done your best. So just this appreciation. I think it's really important, and not
Mm.
that I was able to always give it to myself, but I think it's important that we try to remember at least.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you so, so much. And so I was wondering, do you know the costs of each of the births?
Right, it has been a while now, but approximately after the support we get from the government, we needed to pay 150 plus minus 20,000 for each of the
Mm.
births.
Mm-hmm.
And like the last time, I had a shared room compared to private room the first two times.
Ah, okay.
But still, I was surprised that it didn't make much difference. So it was not
Mm.
so much cheaper having a shared room, but yeah, approximately.
It's bottle time. What have been some of the pros and cons of growing your family here in Japan?
Oh, good questions. I love it. Not having the support, right? Not having my mom over, my
Mm.
family. I sometimes feel really sad about it. Not only the
Mm.
physical support, but the relationships we cannot build because they're not nearby. But at the same time, I feel like I'm given the space and the chance, and together with my husband, to um think about
Mm.
our family values or our ways
Yeah.
of parenting, and having that distance from my family. And also we are close to my in-laws, but still not that close. We're having this
Ah.
space really to do it our way, so to say. Not necessarily it's the
Yeah.
best
It's
way,
so
but
true.
our way. Yeah, but on the
Yeah.
other hand, really missing the support, and like basically it's me and my husband doing everything, and
Mm.
there sometimes it's really hard, and we don't have the luxury of just calling and saying, okay, I need to drop this kid, or I need help
Yes.
with that, you know.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
totally understand both of those. That is spot on.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I'll go through one more. Oh, did you ever second guess giving birth here in Japan for any of your births?
Right, that's a brilliant question. I think for my first, probably I felt quite insecure because I even didn't spend the time to research so much in between. I just arrived
Mm,
and said, like, what options do we have, right?
yeah, true.
Um, so I think the fact that my husband wouldn't be there or would need to be far away, we need to be separated. That was
Mm,
the big thing about deciding to give birth here and to have him nearby, not to separate the
yeah,
family.
of course.
And also, giving birth back in Bulgaria, I've read a lot of horror stories. And I know that things are now changing, right? And there are places where you can give birth in a very positive environment. But like, being kind of having this horror stories in the back of my head that definitely influenced my decision to try here, right?
Yeah, awesome. That's
Despite the
wonderful.
challenges.
Yeah, that's so nice to hear, though. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for not only for having me, but for doing this job. I really think it's so important, the work you do, and so many families and women can feel supported and heard,
Yeah.
and hearing all the
Thank you.
different stories, because it's not always about the facts, but it's mostly about the experiences and feeling connected and finding your people. It's so important in your work, contributing to that. It's really amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. That's the goal. Before we go, actually, I'd love to know, how did you find your people? How did you find your connections? Because obviously you are new to the country. Were you able to find some other pregnant mamas around? Did it take time?
Yeah, absolutely. It took time, and because I just moved and suddenly finding myself at home, pregnant in a new country, like completely different to what I was used to, and I also was not so proactive going out and looking for support and friends. But at my first clinic, they had this pregnancy yoga, and some of the classes were done by the midwives there, so they were really so kind and coming forward and trying to connect me. Even at that point, my Japanese was so bad. They really tried to support me and connect me, and like they pushed me to make these friends that we would be giving birth at the same time. So even something small like that, going to the hospital to do yoga, or then meeting those moms after we gave birth, right? To discuss. And even though it was not in a language I felt completely comfortable in, it still helped me a lot. And afterwards, there were more ways to connect online, right, with the foreign community. But yeah, I wish I had done more at that time. So thank you for asking that.
No, thank you so much for sharing. That's so awesome to know. And I feel like your contribution and your sharing your stories is only going to help more people out there, push to connect, but also push to empower themselves, because I feel like your stories, there was always a progression in how strong you were and how much you advocated for yourself. So I'm so thankful that you were able to share this with us today. And I know that other people are definitely going to benefit from it. So thank you.
Thank you. I hope so. Thank you so much.
So if you'd like to hear more birth stories, please subscribe to this channel. Giving us a like also helps other moms see this video too, so please give us a thumbs up if you can. You can check out the description for more information about bits mentioned in this episode, but if you have any other questions or feedback, please leave a comment below or get in touch. And lastly, if you're a mama that has a story to tell, please send an email to birthstoriesjp@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.